At Academy Sports and Outdoors, we proudly honor our brave military and first responders for everything you do to protect our nation and serve our local communities. We appreciate your unmatched dedication and countless sacrifices. And from October 19th through November 11th, we're giving you our salute with 10% off your sports and outdoors purchases at your local Academy store and online at academy.com/discount. That's academy.com/discount. Exclusions apply.
Welcome to our Saturday simulcast. Strange day in Ross-Ade Stadium. Boilermakers lose a tough one down the stretch. We'll talk about that here with Jordan Jones, Nate Barrett, Dub Jellison, Tom Dienhart will all roll in. Lots to talk about after, as the term soul-crushing would be right, 27-24 Rutgers win over Purdue. Want to thank our friends at the Union Club Hotel for sponsoring this. They're have been a sponsor with us for a long time. We appreciate them. A lot going on at the Union Club Hotel, of course. Vicky Wicks and company have been wonderful sponsors to us, and of course, don't forget to check out at the Burke Boilermaker Golf Course, of course, the Pete Dye Clubhouse, the Boiler House Prime. It is a great place to enjoy. Drink if you get a chance to sit out on the patio. They'll get late in the year for that, but wonderful restaurant and facility there. And also, of course, our good friends at Twin City Superstore, but also Chariot Auto Group, Nate Barrett and Company, who you will see here shortly. We appreciate them, too, as a sponsor here at Gold and Black. All right, I'm going to bring on Nate Barrett and Jordan Jones. And guys, we've seen some ones over the years that are tough to tough to take. This one was Purdue, in looking at the big picture here, had a chance to roll out to a couple good-sized leads or at least get 2 or 3 score leads. Did not do that. It ended up biting them in the end. Nate, I'll start with you. Just some quick thoughts on what we saw transpire here in Ross-Ade.
Yeah, Alan, yesterday on a local radio show that you and I often appear on, I wrote 3 keys out. Purdue needs to get to Kaliakmanis. They did that. Purdue needs to limit penalties. They did that. And Purdue needed to be able to run the ball, and they did that. And yet, in the end, as our radio network crew from Purdue said a few minutes ago, it was a handful of plays, 4 or 5 plays end up biting you. And we've talked about it all season. Purdue just doesn't have any kind of margin for error in a few key moments, and it was enough to take them down. And credit Rutgers also for seeing an advantage. KJ Duff looking really good, nearly record-setting, and they targeted for him, and he did a great job, and they pulled out a shocking victory, which you have a Purdue team, Alan, that came back and played hard today after a really tough performance at Northwestern that no one could explain, and yet it wasn't enough.
Yeah, no doubt. KJ Duffy, Nate talked about 241 receiving yards, the most by a Boilermaker opponent in 42 years. I think, Jordan, the question's going to be now is, you're staring at 4 games, and I'm not going to say losses, but you are going to be a 3 touchdown plus underdog in every one of those games in November, with maybe the possible exception of Washington. But my point is, this is going to be a hard off season if you don't to convince people that that the worm has turned. Yes, Purdue, I think, is a better football team, but not going to have a lot to show for it, it appears.
Yeah, missed opportunities really sum up today for Purdue, and it really sums up the month of October for Purdue. Purdue came into this month knowing that it had opportunities, it had the chance to win some games, and ultimately in a game like this where it had the opportunity to build on 2 score leads on 2 separate occasions, it got the ball back with a little over a minute to go with an opportunity to go win the game, and it doesn't. And you're right. You look at the schedule ahead for Purdue, it's perilous. It's going to be, as you said, probably a 20-plus point underdog in all of these. And it's, a real rain on Barry Odom's inaugural parade, so to speak. I think all of us can look at this and say that Purdue is a better team than it was a season ago. But you're still going to be looking at this as likely a 2-10 record here when all is said and done, and make for a real sour taste in the mouths of Purdue fans if Purdue does indeed end the season on a 10-game losing streak.
Jordan, we talked about Rutgers coming in, being a desperate team as well, and they kept coming. They ran the ball well. We talked about they identified that matchup with Duff, and then they were able to execute after they missed one field goal, but they execute down the stretch. And Mike Carmen and I were talking in the press box about Greg Schiano. Does he kick there to tie it at 24, or does he go ahead and try to get the touchdown? He kicks to tie it up, and you know what? It ends up working out for him. But what did you see from Rutgers kind of down the stretch?
Yeah, it's reflective of Greg Schiano. He's a good coach. He's done a really nice job with Rutgers since he took over for the second time back 2020 or so. They didn't quit. They kept fighting. We knew Rutgers had a good offense. If you looked at what Rutgers has done, with the exception of that loss against Oregon last week, it's been a good offense all season. Rutgers finished with well over 500 yards of offense, almost outgained Purdue by 200 yards. So, we knew Rutgers was going to bring a good offense to the table, and Purdue ultimately wasn't able to get stops when it most needed it. But I think it comes back to the offense not being able to build on 2-score leads on 2 separate occasions when it had the chance.
Right.
Yeah, I think, you look at this too, and I'm scrolling some figures. I wish in our chat room we had questions. We don't have any questions. We just have a lot of comments. I get it. Nobody's happy. And I, that's the way of the world. When you lose a game like this, and we've seen some of these over the years, but just Ryan Brown, I get, there's going to be some angst thrown his way just because you tried to make a play and you got to knock that ball down. But that's easy for me to say in the heat of the moment. Purdue had not turned the ball over. They had the one fumble by Michael Jackson that was overturned. But my point is, you have a turnover at the wrong time. It's hard to lose games, guys, when you have no penalty yards, 5 sacks. But there, some statistics, as they said, statistics are for losers. But Jordan, that's what's, you have to. I don't blame Ryan Brown for trying to do what he did. He's a hyper-competitive guy. But again, having to do it over again, you knock that ball down, at least you get the game to overtime.
Yeah, it's a new one.
It is. I've not seen that. I've watched a lot of Purdue football. I haven't seen that one.
With Nate, I was talking to Mike Carmen. It's Carmen and I are big Bears fans. It's something you'd expect to see from the Bears, unfortunately. Or for Brian Newbert's New York Jets. It's just an excruciating way to lose a game. You look at the way Purdue lost at Minnesota with the pick 6 and then getting stopped on 4th down in the red zone. The way Purdue gets shut out at Northwestern, and then that's the cherry on top. It looks like Purdue's defense got a really nice stand, and then that happened. I don't look at that one play necessarily as what did it, but the Purdue pass game wasn't particularly great. 13 for 23, 5.6 yards per attempt. Those aren't great numbers. Only 128 yards passing. As I said, that Rutgers dominated time of possession, which can be an overrated stat sometimes, but in this case, I think it was fairly reflective. Rutgers outgains Purdue by almost 200. Purdue's offense got some big plays. It was the Malachi Thomas game early on in the first quarter, but it wasn't able to sustain enough consistent success on offense, and ultimately put itself in a spot where it needed a hero drive with a little over a minute to go, and it turned into exactly the opposite.
Very, very frustrating. One more question for Jordan. We're going to bring old Dub in here, but fire away.
I was going to say, Jordan, you do a great job working on the keys every week, but just talk about some of the keys that you thought in your pregame analysis and how Purdue shook out in some of the areas you wrote about.
Yeah, I thought Purdue was going to have more success on offense. I predicted on the site 34-31 Purdue. I thought this was going to be more of a shootout. Now, Rutgers did leave some points on the field in the first half when it got denied on fourth down at the 5-yard line or so. I thought Purdue was going to be able to throw the ball more, and I don't know what that says about Ryan Brown's health. I thought he looked fine, but it's a non-throwing shoulder. But you always wonder. Football's a really mental sport, and if you're worried about getting hit in your left shoulder back there, that's a problem. I didn't think Purdue, was tremendously effective on a down-to-down basis, but it did rip off big runs. You saw where that Rutgers defense was vulnerable.
Yeah.
One of the worst defenses in the power conferences coming into this one. There were some chances downfield that Purdue missed on. It wasn't all able to come together for Purdue on offense. There were some flashes, but Purdue wasn't as down-to-down successful as I maybe thought it would be.
Well said, and it is when you look at the numbers too. Total plays, Rutgers 75-51 over Purdue. Time of possession almost 36 minutes to Purdue's, barely over 23. So that again, a tough loss for the Boilermakers. Jordan, thank you so much. We appreciate your perspective. We're going to bring in Dub, and safe travels home as well. And
thank you, gentlemen.
See ya.
All right, so we'll bring in Dub Jellison, who was at the post press conference. I want to first ask a little bit about, Barry Odom. We heard him on Postgame Radio. Had not a lot to, kind of focused on the fact that you can't do the things you did and win football games. But what do you have to say to Postgame?
Yeah, it was more disappointment from him, and I think that's kind of been consistent throughout the last several weeks as this losing streak has reached 6 games. He talked about the mistakes that they've kind of shot themselves in the foot for, and he didn't make any excuses. He kind of talked about his past a little bit and some of the struggles that he's been through throughout his career and his upbringing. And he's still steadfast on Purdue's going to win. He said he doesn't know when that's going to come, but he's confident in their process and in their plan to build Purdue back into a winner.
Dub, I would want to hit you with something positive. We've been talking with Jordan about a lot of things that went wrong, but Hershey McLaurin had a good game today. Hershey McLaurin comes up with that tip on that 4th and 4 early in the first quarter that gives Purdue the ball on downs, but he did some other good things today. Just talk about a guy in Hershey that you've been waiting to come out and have a better game.
Yeah, when they first signed him out of the portal, I thought he was an instant starter from day one. And he kind of got overtaken by Miles Slusher, and we've seen how Miles Slusher's played. And then you kind of get that. But today he came out and really put that Northwestern game behind him. I think that was his real first opportunity getting defensive snaps since he's gotten here to Purdue. And I think it was kind of just a feeling out process. But today he was absolutely phenomenal. He had the pass breakup on the goal line on 4th down. He had the forced fumble. He had some other big hits. He had a sack and a tackle for loss. So he was flying all over the yard, making plays. And I think that those 2 safety spots in Mike Shear's defense, they're very advantageous for guys just in terms of putting them in position to make plays. Now, you have to go make those plays. That's a completely different thing. But I think, and you've seen it with Taj Rael and Miles Slusher and now Hershey McLaurin, those guys are going to get opportunities, and you have to make the most of them. And he didn't against Northwestern, and he went back to work, and he did today. And so we don't know how long Miles Slusher's out, but I think that position's in good hands with McLaurin going forward if he needs to get some extended run.
I do think in this game too, and a lot of conversation about Ryan Brown and obviously the play he tried to make, and any comments that you heard about his health in post game. And again, I don't know if you stayed for where you were there for when the players came out, but and I'm not sure even who they had in post-game. But what was the takeaway there?
Yeah. So Barry said that Ryan wanted to come back in the game last week, but they couldn't get him an MRI. So Barry wasn't comfortable enough putting him back in. And they did some more testing after practice on Monday, which he participated in. and he kind of just progressed well throughout the week. I wasn't sure if they were going to start him today. Obviously they did, but Barry's, he's kind of remained the same in terms of how he talks about Ryan Brown. He still says Ryan Brown's a starter. There's no changes, even though Malachi Singleton did get some extended run today. Maybe not as much as Tom and I thought coming into the game, but I think Brown, he still had that slight brace on his left shoulder. Hopefully we'll get to talk to him this week and kind of detail his path back to the field. But for what it's worth, I think he's healthy enough to get out there and play, and I don't think Purdue would put him out there if he wasn't.
Dub, go through with us the receiving core as Malachi Thomas leads them today. 3 catches, 50 yards, a little bit different use of him. And Michael Jackson gets 3 catches for a total of 8. And then Tuggle, 2 for 20 to kind of lead the way. And they also threw it to Devin Mockabee a little bit.
Yeah, this receiving core has just been so inconsistent since the first, I think after the Notre Dame and USC games, I think they've been hit or miss. And today was a good example of that. I think they have 1 drop listed on the official stats. I think it's more than that. We'll see what Pro Football Focus has to say when those grades come out tomorrow. But I just don't think that Purdue can really depend on those guys to consistently make plays. And I think it is a two-way street. Ryan Brown missed Nacho Togo and Armad Branch that would have been 40-plus yard touchdowns. I think one was in the first half, one was in the second half. But you still had several drops. E.J. Horton had a drop. Corey Smith had a drop. I think Togo had another drop. So Purdue's going to have to find guys that can be consistent. And we saw Danilo Morissette out warming up before the game. I think he should be back next week. He obviously wasn't able to suit up and play today. But he's inching closer to a return, and he's a guy that I know Tom thinks is the best of the bunch. So that would be big for them. And, I think speaking of Malachi Thomas, I think he gave that offense a huge boost in that first quarter. And it was something that they kind of needed after that Northwestern game. And he had more yards today than he had coming into the day on the season. So that was big for them. And I think that run game is more explosive when they have all 3 guys clicking at the same time.
Yeah, Thomas had a 57-yard rush and the longest rush of the year for Purdue.
Yeah.
I think a lot of questions on the chat, some of we can't repeat in public but any feeling, and one thing about play calling, which is some of the, I get it, but a lot of times it's a choice of the quarterback and what he reads or decides to do. But it did seem that Purdue was running the football well. They didn't throw it a ton, obviously, with Brown today. He only had 20 attempts, 11 completions, 117 yards, and Singleton, of course, has a 317.5 rating because he has 2 touchdown passes and 11. But my point is, why not run the football more? Easy thing to say, though. We've still talked about get the ball to Mockabee, 16 carries with more today. Any comments about that from your own perspective, or anything that was talked about in postgame?
Yeah, we didn't ask Barry Odom about that in particular. But I think a lot of the offense kind of goes through Ryan Brown in terms of he is able to make those decisions. He has the freedom to do that. So I think when you start to see him throw the ball more, it's kind of dictated on what he's seeing and the decisions he's making. Now, whether they're right or wrong is up for debate. I think people can say what they want about that. I do think he had a couple of miscues in terms of when he should have handed it off and he kept it. The one that stood out to me was the one where he tried to, I can't remember the receiver, if it was Jesse Watson or someone else, but Rico Walker got in the way and got that pass interference call. Things like that. And I think he'll continue to grow in that area as he gets more starts. This is still his first year starting, and he's a young guy. So I think he's going to continue to progress with that. I didn't have a huge problem with the play calling. For me, it's been more about execution than the scheme and the play calling.
Yeah, I think that's fair. All right, Dub, we are going to let you head out. Mr. Dienhart is waiting in the wings. Appreciate all your perspective, and even when covering a team, it's still, we're not here to root for Purdue, so to speak, but it is always nicer when you have to go and cover them and talk to the coach on Monday when you come off a win. That did not happen, of course. Rutgers 27-24 win in pretty stunning fashion at Ross State. Dub, be safe on your travels home, and thanks for your perspective, my friend.
All right, thanks, guys.
All right, Tom Dienhart, who is now a moving Tom Dienhart. We'll let him get in his spot. But, Nate, I think the interesting thing, one comment here I was going to show here, which I think is good. 10 years ago, the expectation was it takes 3 to 5 years for a new coach to turn a program around. What is the expectation now, 2 years, 3 years in the current landscape, and why? I'll answer that and let you weigh that in. But I do think that and as Mr. Dienhart looks at us, and I think he's but the expectation, and Barry Odom talked about it, we expect to win now, and I think that's that's what a coach is going to say. But in today's world with transfer portal, that's kind of the way it is.
Yeah, I think, Alan, the dynamics of holding a team together down the stretch of the season are changing and really getting more difficult, not less. And to that is you bring Tom in. Tom, you've covered coaches across this country for decades. So when you look at Barry and his staff, what do you do here going into the month of November?
It's tough, like you said, to keep everybody upbeat and continuing to fight through all of this adversity, guys. I don't know. You have to keep things 1 week at a time. We always hear that, but there's a lot of truth to it. You can't look at the totality of that daunting November schedule. And this is something I talked about during the week too, guys. A lot of, I think, getting through this stuff depends on the internal leadership of the team, the players, the captains, the 8 captains here. They got to really do a good job of keeping everybody dialed in too. So it's big, guys. This one today, man, we've seen some all-time doozies watching Purdue over the years. But this one ranks up there as far as the bizarre nature of it and the overall pain factor of it as well.
Yeah, as I said, it was funny. I put up the Altoon, and Tom, we remember this one. Nate was 3 years old, but the Altoon game in 1983 was an all-timer, just almost like this one. Of course, Purdue gets a punt blocked, and Scott Campbell, who was the honorary captain, gets thrown out of bounds and stops the clock, lets Wisconsin win. This game reminded me of that. I've heard a couple comments about background noise, guys. I don't know. Are you hearing anything on your end? I know it's not 100% quiet where I am, but I'm not hearing any of your background noise. You guys good?
I hear some.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. I wonder if it's my headset. I'm going to switch back. Nate, why don't you fire another one at Tom?
Yeah, no, Tom, I did talk with we added to Dub. Hershey McLaurin had a good game today. He gets that tip early in the first quarter, did some other positive things. He's a guy that, you saw in camp, and it seems like now he's in the mix and maybe can start to make a difference down the stretch.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, Nate. I was kind of worried when we found out Miles Slusher wasn't going to be available today. He left the Northwestern game with injury, and they brought in Hershey up in Evanston. And to put it mildly, he struggled. And so I guess I was expecting the best results today. But he proved me wrong, right? Beginning with that big pass break up there near the goal line in the north end zone. So, yeah, he acquitted himself, guys. He hadn't played hardly at all. I don't think he played a defensive snap all year until that Northwestern game. I think he played 63. Of course, he gets the start today. So that's what you need. Guys stepping up and maybe playing above their expectations or playing through their expectations. So that was key to get a big effort out of him, guys.
And I think hopefully we've solved a little bit. It may have been a me problem as my mic was unhooked, but I apologize for that. But, Tom, the challenge is, and we've kind of hit on this subject, and it's the elephant in the room. I know Barry Odom's got to keep the band together, and they got to fight hard to even be competitive in any of the last 4 games, let alone win them. And this is, Barry Odom talked about, Dub said that he had talked about some of his travails. He talked about that this past Monday about, some of the challenges as a head football coach, and it's not always easy. What is a reasonable expectation over the next 4 weeks? If you're Purdue, reasonably heading into an off season where you will have doubled your victories from the year before, that isn't saying much, but what is a reasonable expectation, do you think, looking at the last 4 weeks of this season?
Yeah, you're right. They finished last year with 11 losses in a row. Looks like they're set to end this year with 10 losses in a row. A reasonable expectation in November, Alan. We're all supposed to be in jolly moods in November, aren't we?
Right.
It's be a holiday season, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Hanukkah, whatever. And yeah, for Purdue, I think not getting blown out, beating the spread, whatever the Vegas spread is. Purdue's supposed to lose by 24, whatever it is, if they can beat the spread and just continue to play hard. And I think that we can tell that with our own eyeballs, right? We saw what it doesn't look like at Northwestern, and we've seen what it looks like in games like today and some others this year. So that on-field effort, the buy-in, if it continues, if they're not getting blown out, if they're maybe, like I said, beating that Vegas spread, I think that's another way as well. And but again, I think more than anything, like I said, if you don't have guys quitting at this point, if they're still playing hard, that's the real eyeball test, and all shows up on film. The coaches will know it, and like I said, it's going to be tough slogging through these 4 games, but maybe Purdue's got a surprise for us down the stretch here with some crazy upset. It seemed like the football guys would smile on them at some time this year.
Parker Nelson writes, "I love Tom Dienhart. I can listen all week." So you've got a fan out there, Tom. But also
Parker got my check. Thanks.
But I also wanted, Tom, we'd be remiss if we didn't say Purdue went penalty free today.
Yeah.
Just touch on that.
Penalty free, 0 penalties. I was just looking that up before I came on with you guys. Big. That was big. The turnovers weren't a big issue today. Obviously, I guess the one they had was monstrous, though, right?
Yes.
I guess it's not fair to me even to say that. But yeah, if you're looking for silver linings, I think, Nate, the penalty thing is one of them for sure. Defensively, CJ Nunnally continues to shine, right?
Yeah.
I think they had 5 sacks as a team. Nunnally was an active guy again. I think maybe the biggest portal surprise Purdue's had this year. I certainly didn't expect him to be a bellwether coming from Akron, and he's certainly been that. You know, I do this stuff with Alan Karpik. It seems like 100 times a week we talk, and
yeah, we do.
Whenever he asks me for keys to win, I always say, feed Devin Mock.
Yes, you do. Mock. Every week I keep saying, are you not changing yours? Yes.
Yeah, they shouldn't have. You know, look at the final stats. I think he had 91 yards rushing. You probably need to run the ball more, I think. So Purdue could not stay on the field, number one. And number two, they couldn't get off the field. 75 plays for Rutgers, 51 plays for Purdue. What a discrepancy. 543 yards of offense. And you know what? We talked about Rutgers having a malign defense. Like I said, they got off the field, limited Purdue to 345 yards. Purdue was 1 of 9 on third downs.
Yeah.
Rutgers was 3 of 4 on fourth downs. So, you know, let's be honest, too. I was thinking about this walking over. Rutgers was the better team today. Rutgers was the better team. Rutgers should have not eschewed that field goal early in the game. I'm a guy who take the points early. Remember, they went for it. That's when I think McLaurin that was a 4th down play.
Right.
They should have just kicked the field goal. And they missed a longer field goal earlier. They dominated this game, man.
Well,
the second quarter was an abomination for Purdue. I think they had like 4 yards of offense. So I guess my point is there's plenty of blame to go around. Even the special teams. You had the mishandled punt by Michael Jackson. There were 1 or 2 other things on special teams. I'm drawing a blank at this point, but still, my point is that there's enough blame to go around here, and the offense and the defense have equal culpability, I think.
Yeah, football's got such a game of momentum, and yet you're right. Purdue completely dominated statistically, and that's true. But boy, you had still how many times? You know, it's always the situation too when you're up 7 or up 10 or whatever you're up, and you have a chance to make it a 3-score game. I was driving Tim Newton crazy today, sitting next to him. You know, just the fact that you had a chance to maybe put a little bit of a knockout punch. Now, whether it would have ever been a knockout punch, because Rutgers could, we knew coming in could throw the football, and KJ proved that, that kind of thing. But yes, Purdue did have a chance to certainly take firm control and possibly knock Rutgers' psyche back that it wasn't going to respond. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, 2 times Purdue was up 10-0, and they had the ball and didn't go up again. They were up 17-7 in the second half with the chance to extend the lead. They were unable to do it. So, yeah, that's huge right there. Like you said, Alan, you talked about taking away somebody's psyche, maybe taking some of their fight away. That certainly would have probably dispirited Rutgers a little bit. But like I said on Twitter, like I'm right now, they kept let Rutgers hang around.
Right.
And just like Minnesota, hang around. There's almost this air of inevitability.
Yeah.
At least there was for me that, man, they're just letting Rutgers hang around here. And sure enough, Rutgers found a way to steal this one late. It was tough. And hey, by the way, I think KJ Duff just came open again. So I'm going to pass. Okay. How about that? How about that?
Yeah, blue coverage big time on the long touchdown.
Why can't Purdue get a KJ Duff?
Yeah.
That's what I was asking. My Rutgers has a KJ Duff. I can't Purdue get a KJ Duff.
You talk about their dominance, Tom. Rutgers, they're late in the second quarter when they get on the board. That's a 17-play, 85-yard drive. They take up 5 minutes and 32 seconds.
Yeah, like I said, they can't get off the field, and that's been a problem in several games this year. Look at the Northwestern game, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
Right from the jump, they went 14 plays to kick the field goal. Purdue was lucky that was only 19-0.
Yeah.
But they can't get off the field. You know, we saw a guy like McLaren make a play on fourth down. I guess you got to have guys make plays at some point, right? And too often Purdue's losing those battles, and it usually always starts up front. Football is one of the trenches. You know, that's no big revelation. And I think there's still some issues there for Purdue on both sides of the ball in the trenches that are going to have to be addressed.
Yeah, and it is going to be, no matter what this offseason looks like, whatever the finish is, it will still be roster refinement will be a storyline of trying to make sure you've got guys that can play. I think you've had an evaluation this year. Some guys can, some guys can't, and putting that puzzle together is going to be a huge storyline for the thing. All right, parting comments as we'll bring this to a close. Nate, I'll start with you. The sun will come up tomorrow. It was a tough night for Purdue men's basketball last night. Not a good mood for Purdue fans. I get it. A lot of questions about that in the press box. Purdue, of course, losing to Kentucky last night. Everybody knows that. And losing by maybe a few more points than people expected. But the sun will come up and Barry Odom will do his job. But let me give you your final thought, then I'll go to Tom and we'll finish this baby up.
Well, one thought I've got to express, Alan, because I listened to your guys' pod show with Derek. I blame a little of this on you, Alan, because you quoted those homecoming statistics on years that end in five, and now you've continued your streak once again. So, no, all kidding aside, I think Tom touched on it. Hey, you know what? Go up to Michigan and try to do don't let Purdue beat Purdue. Get up to Michigan and be penalty free. Get up to Michigan and have a guy like McLaurin get a stop somewhere. And I think Tom said it well. Try to beat the spread. Try to show a little progress in the big house.
Purdue's got nothing to lose. They got nothing to lose. You can play, pressure free in November. Have fun. Try some different things, and that's a nice position to be in. They're supposed to lose, so that's nice to be in that position. And like I said, we'll see how they handle it if they keep fighting through this thing. Hey, on a positive note for Purdue guys, Dave Shondell, he came back from Champaign with the win last night.
That's right.
Big win for volleyball.
And I'll be honest, this isn't a volleyball podcast, but I thought that'd be a 500 team, and they're actually better this year without all those girls who left. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, he's done a great job, and they continue to compete. They go out to USC and win, UCLA and win. Really good year.
Minnesota tomorrow here.
It'll be a tough one. That'll be a tough one. Minnesota is always good. All right, gentlemen, you are now going to be released. You're done having to talk about this game. We all have to look forward, not backward, and we'll do that. But as Tom Dean always says, we also are counted. If I'm talking about when things are tough, you got to still do your job and do that. And Purdue's going to find that in spades over the next 5 weeks, in essence, because they got a bye week in there as well. Right. Indiana put a smoke on UCLA today. Let's put an end to this, and we'll move on and go from there. All right, guys, have a great rest of your day, and we always appreciate your time. All right, I want to thank Nate Barrett, and I want to thank Tom Dienhart. It's one of the privileges of working with the people I do. Brian Newbert made his way back from Lexington and did a great job reporting on the game last night. A lot of fun, not fun for Purdue fans, but he's in his element as well. I want to thank obviously I'm not only
Nate Barrett and the folks at Chariot Auto Group with Twin City and Twin City Dodge Superstore. We appreciate them, but also the folks at the Union Club Hotel and all that they have done for us for all these years. And a reminder too, the Burke Boilermaker and Boiler House Prime is a great place to have a great dinner and a great facility there. It is as they say too, with Purdue. I had some relatives that played golf yesterday on the Ackerman Allen. That is a world-class facility, Union Club Hotel and the Boiler House Prime working together, making that extra special. So we will see you next week. Programming notes too, that we'll be back with Tuesday with our Golden Black Radio. Brian Newbert will be with Purdue and men's basketball on Wednesday. We'll move also our Wednesday Night Live will be Tuesday Night Live due to the men's basketball game. Brian will also be reporting from that. And then back with our pregame show next Friday, and also our Saturday simulcast following. It'll be a late night one, but we hope you'll join us after the Michigan game. Because that would be, we appreciate when people do that and continue to stick with us. That part is very, very important. So don't forget to hit also the like and subscribe button. And of course, you can leave a positive review. And if you're on your favorite podcast platform, leave us a 5-star review and comment. And don't forget to enable alerts as we upload new content just about every day. And while you're at it, think about subscribing to goldenblack.com. The holiday season getting closer. You can join the biggest community on the internet. Use promo code PU1 at checkout when purchasing a monthly subscription and get 2 months for just $1. So make sure you think about joining us at goldenblack.com in any way that we bring it to you, whether it be podcast, Zoomcast, but also that written word, Knucklehead Central, which is probably a blaze right now after this weekend. But this too shall pass, hopefully, if you're a Purdue fan. So have a great rest of your weekend, and thanks again for joining us on our goldenblack.com Saturday simulcast.
As you all know by now, Golden Black Radio has also teamed up with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all our picks, and we'll have special offers for our listeners each week. When you join BetMGM, you get access to a variety of parlay selection features like same-game parlays, live betting options, and more. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code ON3, and you'll get up to a $1,500 first bet. Offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code ON3. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. You will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code ON3 when you sign up. Make this college football season one for the history books. Make it legendary. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 and over only. U.S. promotional offers not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. First bet offer for new customers only, subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards are non-withdrawable bonus bets that can expire in 7 days. In partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code ON3 and get your $1,500 first bet offer today.